and welcome to the Affiliate BI podcast. You're joining me on a quick little nature hike. So for anyone who's watching the video version, you can see a little bit. And today I'm going to talk a short topic about business intelligence and the idea of selling it. So I'm thinking about changing this podcast from the Affiliate BI podcast to the Revenue Leak podcast, and I've got a couple reasons for it. First of all, when it came to building StatsDrone, the idea behind it was primarily just to kind of solve revenue leak for affiliates. I just noticed that affiliates, they weren't really looking at their data, so they couldn't really make data-driven decisions, and there'd be so many ways in which you could lose money as an affiliate. Like, for example, if you had a campaign that just stopped delivering any clicks, or the clicks weren't registering with the affiliate program, then you're losing money. Now, if you happen to have, back in the day, been using a tool like Nifty Stats or Stats Remote, you'd be at least lucky to have some sort of visibility on your data. But just because you had that visibility doesn't mean it actually would detect these problems for you. So that was part of why I wanted to at least build StatsDrone and say, okay, you know what, let's help solve it so you don't need to look through tables of data to see everything. Now, it goes without saying, like, as soon as you say the word business intelligence, you're like, well, what comes to mind with business intelligence? You get things like Tableau, Power BI, Looker Studio, a lot of data viz tools. And if you start doing analysis, there's a massive amount of money in that whole space. And in some instance, you can basically say that AI is now a subset of it. It's like, well, then what is AI in relation to business intelligence and data analysis and analytics? They kind of all come hand in hand. So, and another thing I wanted to say is that while we're trying to go through our journey of getting more users to use StatsDrone, we looked at the TAM, which is the total addressable market, and realized that the market's massive. Like, how many affiliates are there in the world? There's millions and millions. Like, Amazon has, 1 million affiliates on their own. Awin with their network, which used to include ShareASale before it kind of merged in, that's 1 million. What's Impact.com have? I don't know. I mean, if they're not at 1 million, it's still a lot. So affiliates are everywhere, but they're not all using tools to aggregate their data and get the data. So you start with collecting the data, and then you process it, and then you start adding the BI layers, which are now going to become, in some aspects, maybe the AI layers of giving you the automated insights. So I just found that trying to sell a BI solution as BI, it's kind of like, it doesn't speak to people. I mean, they can kind of understand it on a surface level, but when you say business intelligence, I've discovered that a lot of companies that offer BI solutions, they struggle to sell. They struggle to kind of get the message across. And the best way of selling it kind of comes through pain. And it's like, well, what's pain? Revenue leak. So it's kind of like, it's not just to say, like, you know, we want to call it a different name of a podcast for selling, but we also wanted to make it emotional. And when I thought about revenue leak, I wasn't even thinking about a really famous podcast that I was a big fan of that is no longer hosted by Chris Walker, which is Revenue Vitals. And it's like, well, that's a pretty cool name. What is Revenue Vitals? It's the vitals of your revenue, where if you don't solve this, you're going, your life is on the line. So that was a pretty emotional name for a podcast. And I think the reason why that podcast was popular wasn't because it wasn't because, like, you know, Chris Walker is charismatic. It's because of his content. I mean, if it was called Revenue Vitals and he had shit content, no one would care that it was even Revenue Vitals in the first place. So yeah, it's like, I care about this concept of revenue leak, and I just think it's going to resonate with a lot more people. And I think it'll give us permission to kind of go into a couple other spaces outside of affiliate marketing and go, well, what is revenue leak in e-commerce and different industries, and how can we learn from their experiences and bring that inward? So let us know what you think about the concept of revenue leak as the name of the podcast. And who knows, I think it actually might be a new change we're going to do very soon. And I just thought it was insightful to talk about the idea that I know a lot of friends that have, business intelligence companies as services or tools. And for some reason, tools seem very difficult to sell. The services is maybe easier to sell, but it's still a hard sell. I mean, a lot of people are kind of going, well, am I going to save money? And it all comes full circle back to the pain. So I think for all of us companies that are trying to help each other, we need to focus on the pain part and help people make better decisions. I mean, if we're here as to try to be very helpful, then it really comes down to being helpful, and we got to speak their language that they understand the best. So thanks a lot for tuning in, and yeah, maybe your future episodes might be sounding a little different, and gonna spend a bit more work on the presentation of it, and yeah, try to get some really cool different people on board and talk about some challenging topics. For some people it might be uncomfortable, but for other people, we want them to be like, oh wow, I never really saw data in that way, or I never really realized I could unlock as much potential in my business.